All right, guys, it's time for winning reactions. Here we go.
I'm going to refer to a piece that you just wrote last week in the Louisville Courier-Journal in Kentucky, in which you described white Americans as moral monsters. Do you want to live in a world where it's okay for university professors to describe groups of people on the basis of their race as moral monsters? Is that the country that you want to live in?
Well, I think your framing of the question is off. I would encourage people to read the piece. It's only an 800-word piece, so it takes 5 to 7 minutes. I didn't call white people moral monsters. Actually, that was the conclusion of the legendary writer James Baldwin. I'm sure some of your viewers are familiar with Baldwin. That was his conclusion after many years in America.
Yeah, so he's like passing the buck here, even though he wrote it.
And I simply posed the question as to whether or not Baldwin were right when we place some of the behavior along lines of race into historical context. So do I want to
let me quote from the piece. And okay, so I would encourage our viewers also, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you to come on, so people would know what is happening out there beyond their own worlds, and that people like you are writing things like this. And I'm quoting, maybe Baldwin was right when he said we are dealing with moral monsters, i.e. white people. How would you feel about a piece that described black people as moral monsters? You would rightly call that racist, wouldn't you? Why is this not the same?
Calling it out.
You're proof texting and changing the argument by doing so. Again,
it's a simple question. Just answer it.
Encourage your viewers to read the entire piece. I think we've entered into a dangerous
Is it okay even to suggest? Well, is it okay to suggest a group of people on the basis of their race are moral monsters? I mean, do you think that a person's race affects his moral standing? One race is better than another. What do you tell me? What you think?
All right, guys. So in this episode of Clown World, we once again have to deal with the race hustlers of America, who got thoroughly rejected this election as America decided to vote against woke identity politics. However, unfortunately, we still have to deal with the issue of these people continuing to cause hate and division in this country. Okay. And I will continue to cover these types of stories until these individuals are no longer in positions of power, right? The job is not done. And to each and every last one of these woke lunatics who promote racial hatred in this country are no longer in positions where they can affect the American public and to brainwash children with their toxic ideology. And that
okay, but guys, remember back when I did my series repairing history, right? And repairing history together, I talked about part of the solution to repairing division in our country was to have role model leadership in the black community step up and step in front of racist rhetoric coming from the black community, to put it to rest, right? To get in front of it and say, no more. It's not healthy. It's not moving. It's not the future. It's only dragging us into the past, into a biased, confined past, and in this case, a cultural Marxist past of division by picking at the wounds of the past, right? And Greg Foreman is role model leadership. That's why I love to feature him, and that's why I'm going to run through it and analyze this piece along with him. This guy does great work, and he is a true role model in every community.
That takes me out to Jefferson County Public Schools in Kentucky, in which the woke equity chief, Dr. John Marshall, is facing calls to resign from the GOP after he went on this unhinged racist rant against white people on social media. And now you have the race hustlers, like, for example, Dr. Ricky Jones coming out and defending his racist colleague by essentially calling any criticism of anti-white racism as white supremacy, right? It is white supremacy to say, hey, it's not okay for public officials, people who are supposed to be serving the people, whether you're black, white, whatever color you are, to come out and to say overtly racist things against people simply based off their skin color. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and react to this clip, this news clip of them discussing what's happening out in Kentucky. So,
all right, here we go. Hold on one second. I want to add some context to this really quickly. And just give me 1 second to set this up. I want to add some context from our feature tonight, and that is from J. Michael Waller's book, Big Intel, and this is a short that I put out not too long ago, just to add some context to what we're about to watch. So let's listen up. Here we go.
Marx's goal was not to improve, but to destroy family, human relationships, economics, patriotism, loyalty, morals, religion, Western civilization, destruction of the entire human existence. In Marx's words, thus the criticism of heaven is transformed into a criticism of earth, the criticism of religion into the criticism of law, and the criticism of theology into the criticism of politics, denigrating Western civilization and culture. That irreconcilable cultural warfare approach would become known as Cultural Marxism. Adherents called its philosophical basis, the logical trains of thought that would lead people to accept and pursue cultural Marxist conclusions, critical theory. As opposed to the later Marx, the cultural Marxist originalists would tear apart societies not by economic class and the hard currency of capital, but by religion, law, race, family, tradition, knowledge, patriotism, and beliefs. Marx's goal was not to improve, but to destroy.
So yeah, that's the basis of what we're going to hear here as we move forward in this piece. And I want you guys to pay close attention to that with this in mind right here. So here we go.
Let's get into it.
U of L's chair of Pan-African Studies described a group of Kentucky lawmakers as white supremacists at a JCPS event today. It came as he was being honored by the state's largest school district.
WDRB's Darby Bean breaks down the back and forth at a Hall of Fame induction. JCPS honored 7 people Tuesday as members of the district's Equity Hall of Fame.
That looks amazing.
We want to
Equity Hall of Fame. I think by the end of this, it's going to be the Equity Hall of Shame.
Ensure that every child has what they need.
This event comes not long after more than 12 Jefferson County legislators called for the immediate resignation of the district's chief equity officer, Dr. John Marshall, over a social media post aimed at young people, saying in part, quote, "The majority of whites could care less about you and have no issues harming you." The group of Republican lawmakers said that post is absolutely unacceptable. JCPS saying those comments were not made on behalf of the school district.
Why do the radicals always wear bow
still on the
ties?
job.
These are titans in the field of everything they do.
Introducing the Hall of Fame members on Tuesday. One of those new members, Dr. Ricky Jones, using his speech to say Marshall had been attacked, then named the lawmakers one by one who demanded Marshall's resignation.
These are white supremacists. And when I talk about white supremacists, I'm talking about people who feel that because of their race, they are the only ones who have the right to think, know, and decide.
Yeah.
Oh, like kind of like he does with racism, right? That's, I mean, here comes the hypocrisy of the cultural Marxist.
Yeah, again, this is a lot of projection, right? Because that's exactly what these people believe. Because of their race, they are the only ones that have the right to say things that they know that white people could not get away with saying in public, right? And in this situation right here, you have Dr. John Marshall, who is the, I guess, chief diversity officer, okay, for the school district. He is saying things that would suggest that he is not fit for the job, okay? He said that a majority of whites do not care about you as a so-called person of color and will have no issues harming you. He's saying out loud that white people not only don't care, but they will harm you. Now, again, if the roles were reversed, do you think these people would be okay if a white person came out and said these Negroes do not care about you and they have no issues harming you? What do you think these people will be saying?
Right, exactly. Excellent point he's making right here, as the double standard of is well in play at this point, and he feels empowered through his own mind control here that's going on to get out there and to say this and to sow division through race baiting by attacking a group of people on a playing field where they cannot respond back, and they are instilling fear into a whole other group of people about that. This is nothing but pure racist division right here. and fear mongering at the same time. We wonder why, for some reason, in the year 2024, we're talking about racism when it seemed like decades ago this was in the past.
These people will be upset. They will be demanding, rightfully so, demanding the resignation of an individual that is working on behalf of the school system, in which he is setting policies and initiatives that affect students, right? And if he has these types of racist attitudes towards whites, don't you think that can have a negative impact on white students, right? On the white people who are part of the school system?
Absolutely. And on a generational level too, starting at the youngest generation, instilling those ideas and those fears and that perception of reality, that boxed in narrative they'll grow up with. They'll then teach their kids, they'll talk to their friends. So parents will reinforce because they were boxed into the same narrative, and the cycle will repeat. This is poisoning the well for generations to come and sowing racial division.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the argument that would be made if this was the other way around. Okay. But again, these people are the ones that feel like they should have the right to say whatever the hell they want to say without facing any accountability whatsoever. And they always hide behind this. Oh, well, I didn't say it in my capacity as a public official, so therefore it's okay. But again, we've seen time and time again, when it's a white person that's a public official and they say something in their own personal capacity that, you know, hey, the race hustlers don't like, that they feel like is racist. The white person always has to face accountability, right? They always basically end up losing their jobs because everybody has accepted that, yeah, that's not okay, right? Like, it's not acceptable, even if you're making that statement, okay, as a private citizen. The fact that you said that out loud on social media for everybody to see and to know that, okay, this is how you really feel, it calls into question whether or not you can do the job in which you're supposed to be working on behalf of everybody, not just one group of people. But see, the whole point of this DEI stuff is institutional racism, right? They want to bring back racism in schools. That's what this is. Okay, so it's no surprise that a racist is leading a racist initiative, a racist department that should be abolished. And it's also no surprise that the racists are being defended by other racists who have a vested interest in defending this institutional racism that they benefit from.
Yeah, and that institutional racism is part of critical theory, and that's part of institutionalized cultural Marxism. As we dive into the root cause issue, that's just why I want to add this already excellent report by Greg Foreman of Black Conservative Perspective. You know, is like we have to understand that this isn't just, you know, oh, we just woke up and we decided we're going to do this one day. That there's not some kind of bigger agenda behind this to destroy the country, right? Like they act like they're, and to this person with the bow tie and who's been completely programmed by cultural Marxism, he may believe he's on some virtuous you know, mission. You know, he may even believe he's on a mission from God in some way, shape, or form in his own delusional mind. The truth of the matter is he's been programmed for division. He's a useful idiot, right? And that's what he's out there doing. And so you know, to reach someone like this, as we're going to see later in the piece, right, is nearly impossible because he's already so programmed and he's already so subverted to this ideology of division that reaching him it would take a lot of work, right? And you never know, he may come around one day and realize that he's been doing it wrong the whole time, and he may be reachable, right? But the force behind him is already well in play. So what we have to do is we have to understand that we need to take a generational approach, and that generational approach is making sure that critical theory is out of schools, and then replacing all that stuff with things that are going to build healthy minds and strong minds, like the Trivium, where we teach kids and people generationally how to avoid fallacies and false logic, right? And so they don't buy these false premises, and they're taught to see division and to ignore it and to reject it at a young age, and then they don't play into the fallacies of the oppressor of cultural Marxism.
That's exactly what's happening here.
To think about what the problems are, to know what the proper solutions are, and to decide what is going to be done.
Jones also singling out what he called efforts against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Kentucky lawmakers proposed a bill this year to abolish diversity-focused offices and race-based scholarships at public universities. The legislation did not pass.
The greatest threat you face right now is white supremacy, which is in disguise as the anti-DEI movement in this state.
Oh, there you go. So here he is. Here he is trying to make sure that they can keep on spreading the hate and division by saying that any resistance to it is white supremacy in disguise, right? So there you go. Already on the table is them attacking the resistance to their toxic ideas.
WDRB reached out to Kentucky Senate leaders who didn't immediately comment on Jones's remarks. Right? We've also reached out to the House. A University of Louisville spokesperson has not responded to a request for comment.
Yeah, he has the microphone.
Encouraging you, as these legislators and others will return to attack you and your children with anti-DEI legislation, which is really the maintenance of white supremacy legislation in this state at this time in the 21st century.
Yeah, anything that opposes his racist, divisive ideas is obviously white supremacy, and yeah, they're going to come. Yeah, that's obviously what it is because he knows everything.
You better fight back.
JCPS said Superintendent Marty Polio was unavailable for an interview and that the remarks are Ricky Jones' personal comments. Reporting in Louisville, Darby Bean, WDRB News.
Jones was not the only Hall of Fame member to call out lawmakers. You can read that part of the story online at WDRB.com.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay. So this guy, Ricky Jones, has a history of being a racist, right? In fact, Tucker Carlson years ago, about 6 years ago, confronted this guy on some of the things that he was saying in a piece about whites. And let's just say this interview did not go well for him. Take a look.
The sentence, why are so many Black Americans so brutally mean and inhumane, which I would never write. How would you respond to that? Wouldn't you say you're a racist, as you clearly are?
No, the first thing that I would
catch that
do is I would read the piece. And I think, unfortunately, as I talked to your producer this afternoon, I mean, being pugnacious with people like you and I, when we don't know one another, certainly, but we're both Americans, it makes for good television, but it doesn't make for people understanding one another. So I think
I'm quoting your piece. You tell me, hold on, is this quote incorrect?
Yeah, stop with the word salad.
You're quoting.
Stop with the word salad there, Marxist.
So many, are these your words? Tell me what you meant by it. Why are so many white Americans? I'm being patient with you, but when you start spinning me, I lose my patience.
I'm going to be patient with you. I'm going to be patient with you and let you ask and answer the questions if you'd like to, but we'll run out of time.
All right, well, then be quiet and let them do it.
Because television is certainly a short platform. But again, I encourage
why are so many white Americans so... You've said that 5 times. Why don't you answer my question, which is, would it be okay for me to write the sentence, why are Black Americans so brutally mean and insensitive? If you would, please answer the question.
I'm answering the question. The first thing that I would do, I would not limit myself in a very myopic way to one sentence of a piece. I would endeavor to read the entire piece, which you certainly are intelligent enough to do.
It's 800 words, okay? This is not the Republic here.
It's only
this is
800 words.
So can you account for one sentence in that piece? Can you just answer my question? If I wrote an 800-word piece in which I said, why are Black people so awful and morally deficient? What would you think of that?
I would not think you were a racist, but I certainly do. I would think that you are racially insensitive if you would take a piece and not look at the genesis of that piece and place it into historical and literary context. And do people who are watching your show and reading the piece
with attacking people on the basis of their race, which is so common on the left now? Don't you see yourself as part of the problem, as a driver of race hatred? You don't see that?
No, that's not what the piece does. What I find troubling,
yes, it does do that.
Is I understand many white brothers and sisters may not even be aware of what they're doing.
Oh yeah, so now we don't know what we're doing. Right, because thank you for just pointing out how dumb we all are, right? We don't know what we're doing, right? And now you're going to come tell us because you've been subverted by Marxism and you know what's best for everybody.
But when people bring the situation to them and they respond in an indignant way, then that raises a question of morality that I think we have to wrestle with.
I'm trying to get a straight answer out of you. My next question is, how much do you make in your sinecure over there at the University of wherever? But you won't answer that, I'm sure. You're not answering my question.
I'm sure I don't make nearly as much as you with the race baiting that you do.
I'm wondering.
I would trade my salary for yours any day.
I would never say something like this about a racist.
But you do every day.
I would be ashamed to say something like I certainly
do it every day,
and I never would.
You do.
He's like, we should do it every day, right?
In a cursory way, which doesn't really help the discussion.
Well, no, yeah. When you come out here and you accuse everybody, you accuse an entire race of being moral monsters, right? And you say that any resistance to your accusations, any resistance to this cultural Marxism is white supremacy, which is just one thing after another with this guy, right? You don't think that's heard in the conversation a little bit?
Personally? I mean, so yeah. Right. I think we need
Thanks, Professor. Good to see you.
Yeah, I don't think that Tucker has ever said that black people are moral monsters, okay? And no white person would ever be able to get away with saying something like that, which is why you don't really hear it, right? You never hear it, but you do hear that type of overt racial rhetoric from the left, from the race hustles of America, and they always want to boohoo, whine, and cry, and get mad and cry white supremacy because you have people standing up and saying, no, this is not right, right? It's not okay for you to overtly push this type of racism and hate. And no, you're not special, right? Just because you think that you're a victim and that you or your ancestors went through this and that, that doesn't give you a pass or a special right to be racist towards everybody else, right? But this is what these people want, okay?
Right.
That's what they want, okay?
That's
they're not going to stop until they get what they're looking for, right?
Yep.
And part of that is policing language in the sense that, again, we already know that whites are not allowed to say stuff like that. But
okay, yeah, policing language, control of language, root cause issue off the Values of Perception Board. We talk about that they've had a control of language here for a while now, the establishment that is, and we have to take that back. They are controlling the language. They're making up words or redefining words. Control of language is a God level power, something that we have to eliminate people from taking, or groups of people from taking charge of. Then no one should have control over language like this, and no one should be able to change language on a whim.
They are. Right? They're allowed to say stuff like that. And all I'm saying is that, hey, if you want to say stuff like that, cool, but you also have to allow other people to say stuff like that. And you can't boohoo, whine, and cry about it and demand that they lose their jobs simply because they said something that you don't like in their own personal capacity. But we know they would never extend that type of grace because that would mean equality, right? That would mean that they would be on equal footing.
Yeah.
Again, that's the last thing that these people want. They really feel like if they don't get special rights and privileges, they are experiencing some form of racism and white supremacy because they have to face accountability for things that nobody else can get away with except them. But they'll tell you, we're the ones that are oppressed, right? We're so oppressed. And we're facing so much discrimination because, again, there are people who are not okay with them trying to discriminate against others. So let me know what you guys think. Make sthat you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.
Thank you, Greg. All right. So yeah, there you have it. That is Greg Foreman of Black Conservative Perspective. Great piece right there. And yeah, we have to call this out. We have to call it out for what it is. It's a cultural Marxist attack. And that's what we talk about here on Unread the Game with the book Big Intel by J. Michael Waller. Check it out with us. You'll enjoy it. Thank you. This is Winning Reacts.